This is titled A Cavity. A Dream. And when the portrait hung in stranger living rooms, her anonymous face, made beautiful through an old promise, remained nameless. An accident. The blood of the child seemed brighter than that which flowed from Marcella's knee. She watched as her atoms gushed into atoms, creating an incandescent swirl of candy browns. He had split his skull in the impact, and Marcella remained fixated on the pebbles coating the wound. To imagine his head as a piece of art, face painted black and orange, a piece of art spattered with reds and grays and strands of hair, like strands from a paintbrush, completing a Jackson Pollock she'd seen in a library book. The man from the car, a geyser of profanity, cursed the bus driver. Did she not hear what he was saying? Support the head. Should she touch the boy? Support the head. Yes, she'd seen it on 911, but the head was bleeding. Did the gravel come from inside the head? And if she touches the head, will the boy fall to pieces, become an 8-year-old pile of rubble? She heard a light pitter-patter and turned to notice the other children. Their palms were slamming against the window of the bus, faces smeared in face paint and snot. Human cats, clowns, robots, supermen trapped inside the closed-door school bus, eyes lined red and frantic. Is this television? A dream. Things that happen quickly often feel as though they've never happened at all. A daydream, a fleeting moment, a diversion from the usual. A tradition. Every year, February, another portrait painted. A brother, Shane. It was the 17th year, and Marcella, a dream, 17 to 34, was to be released in prints, and Portrait of Marcella would grace the walls of consumers worldwide. As an art student, he painted a portrait of Marcella and promised to make her look beautiful. He made certain use of primary colors and blended the rainbow into brown swooping motions for gritty hair, stippling for freckles, and glasses square to pull the portrait together. There was something grotesque in the way the corners of her mouth were broken and chapped, and the fatness of her nose and the extra eyelashes that fell in heaps onto asymmetrical cheekbones. A house. Her house was different now. Worry's scent lingered in every corner, and with worry came neglect and the pungent smell of dirty litter. Too busy worrying to clean Peabody's toilet. Too busy worrying to quit burning the casserole. Too busy worrying to fix the leaky pipe in the shower, and now the kitchen walls were dripping brown. Shane made certain the stress remained contained within the walls of the house. He kept it away from his New York flat and away from his paintings. Everything in our house took its time. Everything in this town took its time. A visit. Stalked down steps, bent as not to bump ahead. Shoulders stooped, crumbling under the weight of worry. Purple turtleneck, pants hiked under sagging breasts, eyes sick within their sockets. Shane hadn't noticed that her dull brown hair now sat sparse and graying on her scalp. If he could only step outside his body and into hers, he would know the child hadn't left her. An effect. A head made heavy with migraines, hair falling in plenty, cramps and an absence on the 3rd week of every month. How could so much weight be wasted on one incident? A conversation. Sweetheart, you look awful. I'm sorry. You've got me worried. The kid didn't die, Marcy. All right now, perk up. We've got a project to complete here. I don't know how I feel about doing a portrait today. We've done this 100 times. 16. Whatever. I'm getting so old. Who would want my portrait in their living room? Just relax for a moment. The cat's sick. Marcy, she's fine. I'm sick too. Marcy, you're fine. No one's going to want to buy my portraits, not after they find out what happened. Some of the greatest icons of our time were controversial, Marcy. No one will find out. You're just a face with some shoulders. A face with a name. There are a million Marcellas in the world. I'm your sister. So what if they know? You'll be an icon. They'll know my name, and they'll find out, and then everybody will know what happened. And what will they know, Marcy? That some asshole wasn't paying attention and hit one of your students? You did nothing. You were an innocent bystander, a victim. When people find out, they won't think badly of you. They'll feel badly for you. The whole nation will sympathize with your story, and your portrait will be the epicenter of every living room. You're an idealist. And you're a pessimist. Now sit down. Your hair looks nice like that. I like the braid. We've never done that before. A trial. The man from the car was wearing a dress shirt, carelessly unironed by an absent wife. The fabric stretched tight around his middle. The man from the car mentioned the stop sign 6 times since he'd stepped onto the stand and placed a large hand on the worn Bible. The man from the car was an atheist. If Miss Carlson hadn't been so careless, Adam wouldn't have ended up in the ICU, am I right? A miss. Since the incident, Marcella's first name had begun to mean something different, something old and dull and unsaid by the people dressed in black suits that shook her hand and called her Miss Carlson. This must be very hard for you, Miss Carlson. And it was. She started to turn to memory to soothe the worry. Shane told her to leave it at home, leave it out of the courtroom, leave it sealed tight within the mason jars lining the kitchen cabinets. A dream. Had she been so careless? She thought about the Thursday before Easter break when she'd boiled 34 grade A eggs and hand-painted each of them. The next morning, as each kid boarded, Marcella pulled out an egg and watched as their eyes lit up. A closed-mouthed smile graced each of their tiny lips. They whispered, "Thank you, bus driver lady," and Marcella felt glad. Marcella recalled cleaning the mess later that day when 3 of the kids threw up. The eggs had been in her fridge for a few months' time. The eggshells, crushed and carelessly thrown to the floor, had mixed with the vomit to create a crunchy mass of blue and purple and green. A trial. Miss Carlson? A dream. She thought of the time when she'd given the kids small bottles of bubble-blowing soap. They had smiled and whispered, "Thank you, bus driver lady," and Marcella felt glad. She watched the kids dance around as they formed O's with the lips and gently filled the suds with Lucky Charmed breath. The bubbles filled the school bus. After taking a left turn on Market Street, the bubbles floated towards the driver's seat, their life silent and fleeting. They surrounded Marcella and burst in vain, coating her glasses with their remains. The kids screamed when she hit the curb. She spent most of the afternoon mopping spilled soap from the floor of the bus and cleaning dark drops of blood from seat 7, where a girl knocked a loose tooth loose on seat 5. A trial. Let's just cut to the chase, Miss Carlson. Did you neglect to check the stop sign the day Adam George was hit by Stuart Miller? A dream. And the time she'd given the kids sticky caramels on Halloween, the crater-inducing candy and the sounds of cavities fracturing baby teeth in twos. Baby teeth belonging to children with mothers and fathers who took good care of them, mothers and fathers who fed them fresh vegetables, parents who taught them the value of living carefully and watched them closely as they swung from bar to bar like fragile monkeys. A trial. Miss Carlson? A lie. If she were to deny the stop sign, lie and lie and lie and repent, she would be giving God a good reason to pay her attention. She could return to a place where Marcella was her name, where her routine had never been broken and self-awareness remained limited, a place where life was hassle-free, and where a weekend spent in market and church lifted her spirits and worry came in the form of an untied shoelace. A trial. A lie. And if she were to confess, her life would be flipped on its head. She would no longer be Marcella or Marcy or bus driver lady. Miss Carlson would become eternalized through the press, and the parents of children all over the country would shake their heads and spit, "Miss Carlson, you ought to be ashamed of yourself." And she was. A trial. Miss Carlson. A lie. I've never. A trial. I've never. A release. The worry knot began to loosen. She had controlled her own fate. Blood, wet and warm, trickled into her underwear and flowed freely. Its distinctive scent clung. She tucked her hands between her legs and pressed them hard against the wound to stop the bleeding. Conversation. I inspected the bus every morning to make certain. This is bullshit. Miss Carlson, you realize you are under oath. Yes. Miss Carlson? Yes. An epiphany. It was the man from the car. It was his responsibility now. His blood which ran into atoms. His forgotten stop sign. His broken teeth. His thinning hair. His parasite. His mason jars. She was just a victim, an innocent bystander. A dream, and when the portrait hung in stranger living rooms, her anonymous face, made beautiful through an old promise, remained nameless.